Hey, everybody. We're going to kick off the next session here. I know it's after lunchtime. The body is saying sleep, but hopefully in this next section, we're going to be sharing enough interesting, cool data from a global study from a lot of the folks that are up here on the panel in the Magento space. We're going to be sharing some fantastic, very interesting experiment results. And so hopefully out of this next 30 minutes or so, you'll find some great ways to increase revenues and hopefully close the mobile gap here with just 75 days until Black Friday. I just checked that. It's 75 days until Black Friday. So in this section today, we're going to be talking about the results from a global study of Magento-based agencies, Magento, about 250 or so Magento merchants that have been studying, have been experimenting as a part of the mobile optimization initiative. So without further ado, do want to introduce you to fantastic panelists here, including Tom. What is it again? What is it again? Jason, that's right. Jason, Tim, and Quentin. Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Tom Fuertes, CTO of Mobile First. We focus on driving mobile revenue for our clients out of Austin, Texas. Been in the agency ecosystem about 6 years, overseeing the launch of 300 so programs and 5,500 or so tests.
Love it.
My name is Jason Boslow, here with Rizoyo. We're an agency based in the Dallas area. We build on Magento, BigCommerce, and OroCommerce platforms as well. We've been some of the OG members of this group. We've been in it for about 1.5 years now. And I'm sales and business development. We have a couple other Rizoyo people here in the crowd as well, Paul and Giancarlo.
Woo-hoo. I'm Tim Bone. I am the Director of Sales for High Conversion, and we are the technology backbone of the Mobile Optimization Initiative. Mobile Optimization Initiative, who loves it? Ooh. Yeah, there we go. Ooh. And that's what we are all about, mobile optimization.
Thanks, Tim.
Kind of hard to follow that up. You had a chant. My name is Quentin. I work for Shipper HQ. We are an e-commerce company focused on shipping and the cart and checkout. We're the newest kids on the block into this study. We're really focused on Magento, a company called Web Shop Apps before, if anyone knows that, that's us.
Great, thank you, and thanks everybody for being up here on the panel. So we want to get straight to the content, but I think we have to really set the context a little bit. So mobile gap, we know that there's a huge gap. Every fact and figure in the mobile area is increasing. The amount of mobile penetration, the number of smartphones, the time on site, a lot of different areas, but there's one figure that isn't keeping pace, Tom, and it is the amount of revenue that comes from mobile. So in the agency world, you feel this, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. 2015, 2016, a lot of people were saying mobile was the kind of like precursor to desktop. People would study and then purchase. As technology's increased and as smartphone adoption's increased, we haven't seen revenue grow at that same scale where things are keeping up. So it's really a focus for ours on into 2020.
Yeah, and Jason, help us just kind of set the context. We talk about it a lot, but what's the real issue and what's maybe the opportunity that merchants are seeing in the space?
So the issue is your mobile traffic is now half of your total traffic, but your desktop still converts at a significantly higher rate. So in this program, we're trying to test and figure out how to get that closer to your desktop or better in some cases, but really just trying to figure out if you're driving more than half of your traffic from a mobile device, how do you convert that mobile traffic at the same rate or better as your desktop traffic?
And it's billions of dollars of opportunity, right, for the merchants that we're working with?
Yeah. Significant amounts.
Significant amounts. All right, so Tim, so we know from a PayPal perspective, we see this with the 23 million PayPal merchants that are out there, a huge gap, but we also know that no one company can really close this gap. Nobody sees the data that you need to see in order to experiment all through the user experience. So help us understand, there's a community of folks that have gotten together.
Yeah, it's really the foundational concept of the community, and it's pretty simple, is that nobody is going to be able to test and learn and adapt their customer experience fast enough to close this mobile gap at the speed we need to. So if we act collaboratively as a community and we work in a standardized process with the right underlying platform, we can really all work together and exponentially accelerate the entire pace, increase the customer experience, and drive up revenue. Pretty simple concept, but pretty powerful.
Yeah, and it's been a challenge. So the good news is, Quentin, a year into this, we have some pretty interesting results from a year in the program.
Absolutely. So we've seen about 8.2% revenue growth in that.
And, sorry, is that increase in conversion rate, increase in AOV, or is that
Revenue.
yeah?
Yeah,
actual
revenue.
bottom line.
Yeah. This. Yeah. What we're all after. Yeah, and so there's about 40 different agencies in the study, and there's right around 250 customers. So the data is growing and growing as we do this study. It just keeps getting better and better.
Awesome. Yeah, and so it has, when you really look at that 8% increase in revenue for an average merchant, I think we have it up here at 10 million, it represents real dollars, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for the customers that are in this, they can see it as they go. I mean, I don't want to go too much more into it because I know the slides are going, but.
Yeah, don't, because we've got a lot of slides.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot to talk about.
Don't screw this up. So, Tom, we're going to get to the data. We want to show some of the results, but we have to set the context a little bit. And what we've adapted or adopted for the initiative is one key metric, and it's revenue per visitor. And so this RPV notion, help me understand. It wasn't something that I've, 20 some years dating myself in e-commerce had worked with, but it's something that really has landed. Is it something that works for your firm and the customers that you work with?
It does. We have a handful of methodologies for how we set goals per test. Revenue per visitor is one that you have to have a luxury of increased traffic. So with the collaboration in the community, it's something that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's also something that if you're running a smaller test or not in the community, you could look at something closer to your actual metrics. If you're running a homepage test, how many visits to the product page add to cart, et cetera.
Yeah, so the natural ones are average order value, AOV, conversion rate, those, but revenue per visit is really, at least from a merchant standpoint, it's the net bottom line for folks, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome, great. So today, a year into this, Jason, we've got quite a few out-of-the-box experiments that are available, right?
Yeah, last time I checked, it was, 120 or 130. We started off with 0.
Yeah.
So
ragtag.
Yeah, it was really a
Yeah.
collaboration of a group of 5 or 6 SIs at that point,
Yeah.
with another group of probably 10 merchants at that point, trying to figure out what do we want to test, how do we want to test it,
Yeah.
what are the things that we want to come up with, and that's how everything started. As the program grew and as we added more SIs and more merchants, it became harder to figure out, well, what do you want to test? So
Right.
we all came up with a list of ideas with these templates, if you will, from high conversion that were easy to implement, and SIs can get on board really fast and get onboarded and start their merchants doing this really
And
quick.
just to set the context a little bit, we started out in checkout. We started in payments, obviously, PayPal, with checkout, but we've gone, at this point, 130 experiments almost all the way through the user experience, right?
Yeah, we've done category stuff, we've done mega menu things,
Yeah.
related products.
Yeah.
And
even like shipping too, right?
even shipping. Like we added these shipping guys here.
These
so-
shipping guys. Okay. So Tim, 75 days to the Black Friday, the start. From a U.S. perspective, the start of madness. Help us understand. So there's a little bit of psychology at work right now, and we're going to be showing some data from last year, but I think it's important to set the context a little bit about where we're at and what the psychology of right now looks like.
Yeah, well, there's actually a lot of psychology.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody in this room has heard, don't test during the holidays, right? Freeze it, lock it down. Everybody in this room, I'm sure, also understands that the holiday shopper is very different than the everyday during the year shopper. I'm a holiday shopper. I don't shop the rest of the year. So you need a totally different experience for me. And what we're able to do within the community is some experiments we ran last year, we vetted them as an organization. We kind of, mind sourced, or the hive mind, as one person called it, went into it and said, what are things that should play really well for that holiday shopper? We were able to validate them last year. We added some new ones. So we've got a suite of experiments that are specifically designed to help you optimize that holiday period. So part of what we want to get people out of the mindset of is lock down my everyday experience and run that for the holidays. If you do that, you are guaranteed to be losing money on holiday shoppers.
Yeah, so let's get to the data. So Quentin, this one is one of my favorites. It's the coupon collapse. So I can talk about how I shop online, which is as soon as I get to a checkout form and I see the coupon field, the first thing I do is I open up a new browser and Google for that brand plus coupon, that brand plus promo code. Help me understand what we were testing and some of the hypothesis around this test.
Yes, this is a pretty interesting one, especially on mobile, because on a desktop you can just click another tab and it doesn't really navigate you from that screen that you're looking at. But the idea is not wanting to make the customer go look for a coupon code. It's going to take them off that main page that they're going to do it. They're going to get on the coupon thing. They're going to click an ad, go somewhere else. So the idea behind it was to just keep them there, hide it. Don't offer it as there. And they saw a 3.4% lift.
Yeah. So, there's a couple of different ways to look at this. It's really interesting from a psychology. It turns out people do shop like I do. They open up a new browser, they get distracted, and they go away, and they never come
absolutely.
back. And so, but what we found though is fascinating. And Tom, I want you to talk a little bit about this one here. We're seeing holiday data from last year, Q4 of last year, during that sort of bow of the chasm, or the bow of whatever, the important period, versus the rest of it. So I don't know if you can see it there, but it's a huge disparity, right?
Yeah, it's a very large disparity. I think in general we've touched on the theme that holiday traffic is going to be different than your standard yearly traffic. So anything you can do to remove distraction, I believe, is the theme of a lot of the wins that we've seen. So as long as you're allowing people to go through that seamless checkout process without necessarily bouncing, a lot of the decisions are made on the cart at holiday rather than in the cart.
Yeah. And so the takeaway for this one for a merchant, Jason, I'll have you talk to this one, and I want you to explain the next one here. But the takeaway from an experiment like this is, for a merchant, test all the way through the entire year. Some things are going to work great. Some things are...
Yeah, some things are definitely going to work better than others. Even on this test, we did see a group of merchants that this did not work well on.
Yeah.
If you are heavily into coupon codes, or if you are doing mass mails with coupon codes, things like that, you do still want to make that field presentable and obvious to your customer so that you don't lose them and if they get frustrated trying to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. So help us understand. So the simplified header here is another interesting test where we had a huge disparity between the holidays and non-holidays. What are we looking at here?
So essentially what we did was remove all of the header except for the logo. So we took away the menu, we took away the search box, we took away the shopping cart. Everything on the header part of this was the test.
Yeah. And Tim, pretty interesting disparity between, right?
Yeah, this is, it's another one where you see a totally different dynamic with your holiday shopper. This is why you got to test everything. We've got our theories, but we're able to work as a community to figure out what really works and what really doesn't.
Yeah, and it's the holiday psychology, right? Where you just want to limit distraction as much as possible, get people through the checkout process, right?
Yeah, because you get an easily distracted guy like me that, if there's
You
lots
are
of
very
elements, you
easily
can't figure
distracted.
out what's going on,
Very.
and I'm your holiday shopper. Again, I'm your holiday shopper. Simple.
And so, Quentin, on this one here as well, I think you can see it a little bit better over there, but a call out is that we're not just testing for phone. It's a mobile optimization initiative, but we're testing every context, and we're testing a lot of different metrics along the way, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that, we look at desktop, we look at phone, and tablets in there as well.
Yeah.
Which tablet's kind of like the Wild West. I don't think we've really found a trend in anything.
Well, I found the trend. Tablet users are just whack. They are crazy. There is no rhyme or reason to what they do.
The trend is it's crazy.
Well, great. And so another one along the way, Tom, I want you to talk a little bit about this one. This experiment is an interesting one for me that highlights, again, the psychology of making everything simple, seamless, easy, frictionless as possible. So the experiment here is when you increment a product amount, instead of having to hit the update shopping cart, which is in most platforms the default, what we established with the high conversion platform is auto incrementing, right?
Yeah, anything you can do to make it easier to add more things to your cart, the better. It also sets up a frictionless checkout process. I think as soon as you start having to do multiple things in the cart, it sets up the pain of like, am I going to really fill out all these mobile forms right now? Should I just get to it later? The sooner that you can make that happen, and the sooner you can make it frictionless, the more likely people are going to be to continue down funnel.
Yeah, and Jason, we had a pretty solid impact on this one.
Yeah, we really did. And I think it surprised all of us too, but rather than reloading the page when you updated the product quantity, it automatically did it when you changed it. Definitely proved out on phone and desktop, and to your point on tablet people just being whacked.
Nuts.
Yeah, nuts.
Nuts, absolutely nuts, absolutely nuts. I think they're watching Game of Thrones, even if like season 2, and just doing weird things and then adding things to their cart and then not checking out. But Tim, on this, Sorry, Tim, on this, I had something else to say and it was going to get bad. Tim, on this one, so help us understand. So there's that distribution. There's that what do we call that? A histogram down below.
That's a histogram.
It's a histogram.
Histogram, for those of you who want to know what kind of a chart that is.
So it sounds like it's math and stuff. So with the histogram, help us understand what we're seeing from this one. Pretty wildly successful, right?
Yeah, so what it's telling us is what percentage of the merchants that ran this experiment had success. And you can see, that, there's a couple things to see here. One is this is a great one to try. So when we're building the library that we talked about earlier, one of the things about that library is it's a library of high confidence experiments. So you're not just building something you're like, maybe this is going to work, maybe it isn't. The community's already kind of run through it and we're saying, this is likely to succeed. Having said that, it's always just likely. 95.5. But somebody did not get a good result out of this. So you always always test. If we just knew what was going to work, there's no point in having a test on it. We'll just tell you, we know this is going to work 100% of the time, do it, but we find that that's not what happens. There's always some dynamics that change.
Yeah. And we'll show a couple of experiments where that's the case, where there's some negative folks in there, and we'll talk about that. Actually, it's the next one. Jason, as the PayPal guy, this is where I'm quiet. I don't like to be up here shilling for PayPal, but there's a really interesting thing that we're talking about here as far as moving wallet solutions like PayPal at a different spot in the checkout process, right?
Correct. So one of the things that we were testing was by adding the wallet solution further up in the funnel, would it affect average order value?
Yeah.
And that was basically the hypothesis there, was trying to figure out, will it affect average order value? The general thought was that it would negatively impact average order value.
Yeah, and it makes sense though, because you lose out on cross-sell, you lose out on upsell. But the dynamic here, I think it was pretty interesting what we found here. And I can't remember who we loaded up with this one, but pretty interesting results from this one, right, Jason?
Yeah, so almost everybody, from the desktop to the phone and even your fun tablet folk, were revenue per visitor increase, which was the metric that we were using to measure all of this. So, but to Tim's point, there's still 78% success rate, so there's definitely merchants that this did not work on.
Yeah, so the hypothesis is it hits AOV, not worth it, but when we actually look at RPV of moving wallet solutions like PayPal Express Checkout further up the funnel, there's a positive impact. Cool. But some people saw a negative impact though. And so Tim, I don't know if you have the details on this one, but I know we talked a little bit about this, that it was highly complex checkouts where folks had custom products where there were some issues.
Yeah, I think the real point is when we see this, the other thing that happens is we'll start asking ourselves why. Why are these people, and this is for every test, why are these people in the lower quadrant? And again, this is where kind of the collaborative community comes in, because maybe Tom knows, maybe Jason knows, or has a good theory as to why. Maybe we tweak the test so we can move that confidence level up. But we'll find different things, and a lot of times we'll find an underlying dynamic like an existing complex checkout scheme that this just doesn't work for.
Yeah, great. And so in any initiative like this, when people get up and talk about it, they talk about the wildly successful. Tom, us in the CRO business are always right?
I wish. If I were always right, I'd ask for a lot more salary. The number one consistent thing we see is we never launch a test that we think is going to lose, but we're right roughly 30% of the time from a statistic standpoint. 50% it does nothing, and 20% it loses. So with the losers, we generally say do the opposite. You found something that your customers liked. How do you do more of the thing that you took away? With the middle ground, it's where it gets interesting, and that's where you do your analysis.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so one of the areas is we want to be as transparent as possible. Note that every one of these experiments is up on our what we call our microsite, but it's a community site where we publish all the facts and figures. All of these experiments are up there on a quarterly basis. We refresh the experiment findings. So this is one from a negative standpoint. Jason, we tested everything around navigation, around breadcrumbs. We tested with breadcrumbs, without, various factors with breadcrumbs, but it ends up that users really love one thing, and what is that?
That would be breadcrumbs.
They love breadcrumbs.
Do not take away their breadcrumbs.
And so what this experiment, for folks, it may be difficult to see in the back, but it help us understand what we're seeing here.
Yeah, so for breadcrumbs is basically the path that you took to get to the product page. Clearly, customers want to be able to backtrack back to the category page or back to, however they landed on that product page without having to hit the back button. And they told us all about it really quickly.
Yeah, so we'll leave the tablet aside here at a negative 19%, but for phone, it really highlights that from a breadcrumb perspective, users really like breadcrumbs, right?
Yeah, and it's, again, this is why we test, right? Is we think we know,
Yeah.
right? And I was at a different event a couple of months ago, and two of the panelists at that said, the key thing is be humble, be willing to be wrong, and we're wrong. We know what we're doing here. We got some pretty good ideas, but we're wrong a decent percentage of the time.
Yeah.
So we get rid of that. We learn our lessons. We replace. We modify, and we move on.
Yeah, and speaking of additional tests, Quentin, I want to talk a little bit about the roadmap that we have going forward. ShipperHQ's joined us in the community. Thank you. Merchants, agencies, folks in the audience, if you'd like to join the initiative, it's free for merchants, and there's potential revenue for agencies. We try and make it as collaborative as possible, but some of the things that we're testing, I'm super excited about some of the shipping stuff we're doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think the payments thing was really good, but you got to ship it.
Payments are awesome.
You got to do your payments, you got to do your shipping, you got to do your taxes. So I'm really excited about being a part of this. One of the things we're looking at is really the thresholds and the reminders here, because what we notice is, I think it's 72% of customers want free shipping, and that's going to be an incentive for them. So put a banner, give them a reminder, let them think, oh, if I buy some socks or get this or do that, it's going to help them push that, get the free shipping, click order.
Yeah, and then it help us this next one here as well. That's another really, really interesting one for me.
Which one is this?
It's the quick fulfillment. It's the call out for when it's going to.
Oh yeah, so Amazon is
You built this one, right, Quentin?
My right eye's better than my left eye. No, so Amazon has conditioned us all to know and to want to know when our products are going to arrive, and it's possible for you on Magento. So it's nothing that they've built and it's this crazy thing, but just showing a customer, hey, I know this item's going to arrive on this day. It's going to change their mind. Customers want things within 2 days, and show it to them. We'll see what we get.
Yeah, love it. So,
yeah, expected. Yeah. There's always, USPS might forget to kick it all the way there.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so
USPS.
Jason, you get the last word, and we'll have a chance for a couple of questions. I think we have a little bit of extra time, so if you have a question, be ready. So Jason, you have maybe the last word. I don't know, at least the last word for this section. From your perspective as an agency with quite a few merchants in the initiative, how's it been?
So it's been great. A lot of good learnings, and even being able to show merchants that what they thought they knew, they necessarily didn't know. Prime example, one of our merchants, a large merchant that sells sporting goods, has multiple sites. They all look very similar. So their assumption was that they all convert very similar. We actually did different tests on the different sites to see how their customers reacted differently, and they were amazed at the differences that they saw, thinking that it was the same shopper shopping on the same site that would convert the same, and they were very wrong. And they are currently in a migration from 1 to 2, so they are changing their strategy on some of their templates now for checkout on their other sites because of the learnings that they had from this. So test.
Can I have one last word tying into what
No,
you were just saying?
no.
I got it last. I want the last word.
No, you can't.
I'm gonna have the last word.
No, Jason has the last words. Go ahead,
Bring us
Tim.
back. So you make an excellent. No, this is an excellent point too. Is that for anybody that hasn't migrated or is even getting close to their migration journey, the data and you can start testing to validate some of the things you think you want to have in your new site. So, again, it's one of these things people think, well, I don't want to test when I'm getting ready to switch platforms. Well, keep in mind, the first thing you're getting is analytics. You can understand your existing site to a deeper level. Then I can compare and contrast with my new site, and I also have the structure in place to test things I think maybe I want to change on my new site. So validate before I move it over.
You can pay for your implementation if you can get an 8% bump, right? In many cases.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot to get up in front of your peers. Let's give these folks a hand. And thank you very much.